I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who would risk her entire marriage for a man at work. But here I am admitting the ugliest truth about myself. I did things for my boss I'd never do for my own husband, and now my husband is divorcing me. And worse, he's telling everyone exactly what I did. It started so small, so innocent. I'd been with my husband Chris for almost 9 years. He's a good man, solid, dependable. But maybe that was the problem. Life with him had settled into a routine that felt more like a schedule than a marriage. We woke up, went to work, had dinner, watched TV, went to bed. Comfortable, predictable, safe. And I told myself that's what marriage was supposed to be. Then came Ethan, my boss. He was nothing like Chris. Confident, charismatic, always in control of every room he walked into. When he gave me attention, it felt electric. He noticed details. My hair, my new dress, the way I phrased things in meetings. Compliments that seemed harmless but lit me up inside because they were things Chris hadn't said in years. At first, I convinced myself it was nothing. I told myself it was just admiration, the thrill of being noticed. But Ethan knew exactly what he was doing. He blurred lines slowly. A late meeting that turned into dinner. A glass of wine to relax after a stressful day. A hand on my shoulder that lingered a little too long. And the worst part? I didn't stop it. I let it happen because I wanted to feel that spark again. With Chris, intimacy had become routine, almost mechanical. But with Ethan, it was like being 20 again, reckless, passionate, alive. I found myself doing things for him I never would have considered with my husband. Dressing a certain way just to catch his eye, saying yes to things that crossed every boundary I'd once thought I had. The shame of it hit me sometimes, but the rush was stronger. For a while, I lived in two worlds. At home, I was the wife who cooked dinner and smiled through conversations. At work, I was someone else, bold, desired, willing to break every rule. I thought I could balance both without either world colliding. But lies have a way of surfacing. Chris found out one evening when he noticed my phone buzzing non-stop. I'd left it on the counter, and while I was in the shower, Ethan's messages lit up the screen. They weren't vague. They weren't professional. They were explicit, undeniable proof of what I'd been doing. When I stepped out of the bathroom, Chris was sitting at the table, my phone in his hand. The look on his face was something I'll never forget. Devastation mixed with disbelief, like the man he thought he knew had just died in front of him. He didn't yell at first. He didn't throw things. He just asked one question, his voice shaking. "Why him? Why would you do things for him you'd never do for me?" And I had no answer, because the truth was too cruel to say out loud. I wanted excitement, and I used Ethan to feel alive. That night changed everything. Chris moved into the guest room immediately. He wouldn't touch me, wouldn't even look me in the eye. He filed for divorce within a month. But the humiliation didn't stop there. He started telling people, his family, our friends, even mutual acquaintances. Everyone knew what I had done. And the worst part? He wasn't exaggerating. Every painful detail he shared was the truth. The whispers started. The stares. People looking at me like I was poison. I became the woman who cheated on her good husband with her boss. A cautionary tale, a punchline. Ethan? He kept his distance. At work, he became cold, professional, untouchable. The man I thought was so invested in me had moved on without a scratch, while I was left with my life in ruins. Nights are the hardest. Lying in bed alone, I remember Chris's words echoing, "Why him? Why not me?" And I hate myself for not having an answer that makes sense, because in reality there was no good reason. Chris gave me stability, devotion, loyalty. Ethan gave me thrill and ego boosts, and I threw away my marriage chasing the latter. Now, when I see Chris, he looks through me like I'm a stranger. There's no anger left, just emptiness. That's how I know I lost him for good. You can fight anger, but you can't fight indifference. He's done. Sometimes I wonder what I was chasing. Did I really think Ethan would love me the way Chris did? Did I believe a man who flirts with his employees was going to be my forever? Or was I just running from the boring comfort of a good man who actually cared about me? The truth I've had to swallow is bitter. I wasn't brave, I wasn't bold, I wasn't even passionate. I was selfish. I wanted more than what I had, and instead of working on my marriage, I escaped into the arms of someone who only wanted a temporary distraction. And now, I'm the distraction that got discarded. Chris has moved on. He doesn't call, doesn't text, doesn't check in. I hear through mutual friends that he's doing better, working out more, going out with people, even dating again. Meanwhile, I'm stuck replaying my mistakes, wondering how I could have been so blind. When I look back at my marriage, I see things differently now. The routine I complained about was actually stability. The predictability I resented was safety. The love I dismissed as boring was the kind of love people spend their whole lives searching for. And I threw it away because I wanted to feel special in the eyes of someone who didn't even care if I made it home safe. I did things for my boss I'd never do for my husband. And for what? A few months of thrill, an ego boost, a fantasy that collapsed the second it was exposed. What I'm left with now is loneliness, humiliation, and the echo of Chris's question haunting me every day. Why him? Why not me? I'll never have a good answer.